Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live event here at Richer Health and Richer Health Retreat Center. I'm Nicolette Richer, CEO and founder of Richer Health Consulting, the Richer Health Wellness Center that's going to be opening up in Pemberton, hopefully next month once the renovations are done. I'm also the CEO and founder of the Green Mustache, where we have 6 locations now to serve you, to provide you with 100% organic healing foods that come from the farmers to your belly with as little intervention as possible. So we love unprocessed whole foods cooked in raw form so that you can digest the maximum amount of nutrients. And at the Green Mustache, we believe in getting you healthy through nutrifying your body, which enables your body to detoxify. Now, the Green Mustache does have franchises. We have 4 franchises currently, and we're looking for incredible people who want to be their own boss, run their own business, and want to bring health to your community. So if you think that is you, or if you know someone, definitely reach out to us, fill out an application online, and we will teach you how to start your own amazingly healthy wellness business in your community. A Green Mustache restaurant is not hard to create. It is very enjoyable to run. You will be doing such good things for your planet and for the people and for your friends that you love in and around you. So today we are talking about building your whole health team, and I'm going to teach you what that means, because everybody needs to have a whole health team. And when I ask most people that I teach, either in workshops or one-on-one consulting or at speaking gigs, often most people have no idea what I'm talking about. They usually just have one go-to health person that they see, and they don't actually have a full team working for them. So I'm going to teach you how to do that, how to get those people on your team, get them on your side to advocate for your health, so that you can have multiple options when it comes to healing your cancer and chronic disease. Now, before we get into that, let's chat about a few things. The Richer Health, I'm going to slow down. The Richer Health Retreat Center is going to be launching its first 6-day retreats in January. So go to our website, check that out. That's richerhealthretreatcenter.com, and see what dates are available. Register for a retreat. Come and enjoy 6 nights of accommodation at our wellness center, where we're going to feed you beautiful organic cold pressed juices, healing meals, cooked and raw. You can get massages, do yoga twice a day, acupuncture, homeopathy, chiropractic care. You'll have medical doctors analyze your lab reports. There's so much happening at the retreat center, but it's going to be relaxing, and you won't have to lift a finger to be able to change your health around. Now, Richer Health Consulting, we have tons of great programs that are also launching in December 1st. We have a couple more spots available in our Train the Trainer program. Richer Health is growing, and we need people who can teach what I teach to others. And so you come out of it becoming a health educator, where you can teach people how to do and implement the Gerson therapy with ease. And you can teach people essentially how to eat to beat their cancer and chronic disease. Now, we also have Sea to Sky Thrivers, which is our nonprofit arm. So this society, we work with youth, with young adults, with adults and physicians, teaching them how to use food as medicine. And we just landed an awesome contract with the Squamish Nation, where we're going to be delivering 3 different programs. One for their elementary school students after school program, where we're going to be bringing in food. We're going to be chopping and cooking and eating and learning all about what it means to return to food. And then we have a young adult program for the high school students, and that'll be launching in the spring. And then we are going to have an incredible night of eating and dining and talking about diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and how this autoimmune disorder, this chronic degenerative lifestyle disease, can be reversed in as little as 7 to 30 days. And this can all be done using food as medicine. So that's the Sea to Sky Thrivers. Come to any of our events. They're listed on our website at seatoskythrivers.com. And you can learn all about eating to beat different autoimmune diseases, cancer, diabetes, Crohn's disease. We're going to have a different topic every month, and sign up for them. The workshops are only $15, and for 2 hours, you get treats, and it's definitely going to be worth your while. You're going to learn a ton of information that you can implement from the moment you get home after the workshop. Now, a couple things I wanted to talk to you about. It is winter time, and it is the flu season, and a lot of people are rushing out to get flu shots. I'm not going to tell you whether to get a flu shot or not, but I will tell you how you can use food as medicine during this time. So my daughter developed a cough a few days ago, and I went to my medicine cabinet, which is the tea cabinet. In fact, we barely have any medicine in the house. We don't even have Tylenol or Benadryl or anything. But we turn to food, and we turn to herbs, and we turn to homeopathy when it comes to flu season time. And we like to be proactive, which means getting nutrients into the body before the diseases, the viruses, the pathogens and bacteria are flying around. So I like to build my family's immune system first, and then let their immune systems deal with everything that there is inundating their systems during this time. So one tea that I make regularly in the house, usually in the spring and in the fall, when people start developing colds and sinus and start getting sinus issues. It's a beautiful tea, really easy to make. I went to a wonderful little store in Pemberton where we now live, and they sell all sorts of herbs and spices and lots of other things that you can use for this tea, but it's really simple. So I put equal parts mullein to marshmallow to licorice root, and then you can throw in anything else you want. In this, I actually use cordyceps and reishi mushroom. So it's actually the mushroom that's been dried. And I just put that into a pot in a liter of water, and I let it simmer with the lid on for about an hour. And so I cook it, it becomes really, really strong. And then I pour that liter of water into 4 little mason jars, and then everybody just gets a shot of it every single day. For about 2 weeks. And what I find is that it really helps to be preventative, but it also helps in acute stage. So my daughter was coughing, her throat was sore, and I just gave her, tincture essentially of this tea. I put a little bit of maple syrup. You could use honey if you're not vegan as well, to sweeten it up a bit, but it's actually quite sweet. The licorice makes it actually sweet, so you probably don't need to put any sweetener in it at all. You can add lemon to it. And that's what we give our kids during the flu season and when they have coughs. And then we double up on our vitamin C. So sometimes I'm giving, 2,000 to 8,000 to 10,000 milligrams a day, depending if they're in an acute cold stage or just to be preventative, they might take a few thousand milligrams a day. So that's something that always is in our medicine cabinet during the flu season. Iodine as well. My kids get water-soluble Lugol solution iodine. They take a few drops of that a day. They'll take more drops if they're sick because their body's going to use it. And then magnesium is really important during this time as well. So basically those 4 things, the tea, the vitamin C, the iodine, and the magnesium, that lives in our cupboard, and it keeps our kids healthy during this time. So start making that tea. We'll put the recipe at the end of this Facebook Live talk so that you can have access to it. And tell me how it goes when you make it. And if you don't like the flavor, I can tell you some other things that you can do to add to the tea, but I hope you like it. We love it. We've been drinking it for years. So one other announcement that I want to make is that my TED Talk TEDx Talk is live. I gave a TEDx talk in West Vancouver, reimagining education. What if medical schools were actually called health schools? So watch that talk. We're going to put the link below as well. And one of the books that I referenced in that talk is this book, Food is Better Medicine Than Drugs by Patrick Holford and Jerome Byrne. And it's a brilliant, brilliant book. So please get your hands on this book and read it. There's no excuse anymore for not really knowing and understanding that the body heals itself. There's so much information out there. There's no excuse for not knowing how to use food as medicine other than you just got to start reading, get books, watch the documentaries. There are thousands of doctors now that are, leaving public practice to move into private practice or move into the healthcare field. And when I say the healthcare field, it's really when there's care around health, and it's about getting results, getting people off their drugs, canceling surgeries. So food is medicine. It always has been, and it always will be. So first off, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. You can't sleep your way out of a bad diet. You can't, take supplements and supplement your way out of a bad diet. You've got to use food first. That is your first and foremost, your strongest foundation to optimal health. Your body knows what to do with real, unprocessed, unpackaged, unsulfured, unpreserved, non-dyed, non-GMO'd, low sodium foods. Okay, so you got to return to food if you really stand any chance of healing your lifestyle caused cancer and chronic disease. So the information is there. So another thing, just going back to when I was talking about all those herbs, if you want some more information, First Nations have been using plant-based medicine for their entire existence. So for thousands of years on our planet. Lots of communities around the world have been. Us, though, as Westerners, we've removed ourselves from that, and we don't know what it is like to use plants as medicine. They say that there's about 70,000 edible plants on the planet, and North Americans eat roughly about 3,000 of those plants. And I would beg to differ that only a small percentage of North Americans actually eat 3,000. I'd probably say the majority of North Americans consume probably about 5 ingredients, which would be yeast, flour, sugar, corn, and wheat for the most part, and meat. So when it comes to putting the plants back into our lifestyle, remembering that about 100 to 150 years ago, that's what we pretty much ate all the time before the processed food industry took off. And so if you need help understanding about the power of foods, here are some books that you can get. So we have this one here, Native Plants, Native Healing, Traditional Muskogee Way, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. So brilliant book. I got it from the Squamish-Lillooet Cultural Center. They have a whole heap of beautiful books all about using food as medicine. So you can learn all about the berries and the plants that you can pick in your backyard. There's no excuse. They're there. Learn about them. Wild berries, learn your berries, because all summer long we pick incredible berries that we just eat right off the side of the most walking trails here in Whistler and Pemberton. And usually people walk by and think we're crazy because we're hunkered over some bushes, and they don't realize that the little berries that are on those bushes are edible, and they are the true superfoods. Now, Plants of Power. This is another brilliant book. We'll list these as well at the end of this talk, so you can have access to these. But beautiful books written all about North American berries, plants, herbs, everything that you can use dried, eat them fresh when they're ready, dry them for the fall and the winter and the spring, and just learn all about them. So my favorite topic. Actually, every topic about health is my favorite topic. But this one in particular, building your whole health team, is probably one of the most important concepts that exist out there. So I really got this concept from Dr. Lisa Rankin. She wrote a beautiful book. She's got several books, but the one book that I really loved reading the most was Mind Over Medicine. And it really talks about the power of the mind to heal the body. But of course, the mind has to stimulate existing systems in the body, and those systems need to be healthy as well to be able to function. But the mind is incredibly powerful. It can regulate your hormones. It can boost hormones that aren't enough and readily available. It can detoxify the liver. Like, ultimately, the mind tells the body what to do. It tells it to breathe. It tells it to eliminate. It tells it to heal. It tells it, to go and have sex and procreate. The mind is amazing. So in Dr. Lisa Rankin's book, though, she does talk about the need for a whole health team. And so a whole health team looks like this. Well, let's look at where you currently are at. Most people, when they get sick, they often think, oh, I should go to the doctor and I should, get them to look at me, understand my symptoms, diagnose me, and then prescribe me. And, a lot of people go to doctors actually looking for them to recommend things like food and rest and water and, but they don't often get that. And they don't realize the doctors actually have to prescribe you with something. It could be time off work, but for the most part, it usually is in the form of some type of pharmaceutical drug, because the goal is to eliminate your symptoms, make them go away, make the pain go away, make the bleeding stop, make the infection go away. So that's all well and good. And that's great in an acute situation. Now, with the work I do, a lot of people seem to think that I'm anti-chemotherapy, anti-surgery, anti-radiation, anti-drugs, but I'm actually not. For somebody who's not going to make the lifestyle changes to get rid of their symptoms, you have to take the drugs, right? If you're not going to go and seek other healthcare practitioners and change your diet, do some exercise, get some sleep, drink, your juices, do all of that, then you're going to have to take the drugs. There's no doubt about that. And I have utmost undue respect for medical doctors. It's intense training for at least 6 to 10 years. It's really stressful to get through medical school. Once you get through medical school, the workload is, the doctors are run off their feet, essentially. And they don't often make a ton of money. Excuse me. I need some more of my tea. Thank you. I heard some gesundheits out there. So when it comes to going to the doctors, a lot of the GPs, they don't actually make a lot of money because they have to see a lot of patients and they have to get reimbursed from the insurance companies to make sure that they're going to have the funds to cover their medical practices. So, and that's in this day and age when the medical system is changing amongst a lot of medical doctors who want to provide more service to their patients, spend more time with their patients. That means they're going to earn less money. And in fact, there's a doctor in our community who actually lost her job for spending more time, more than the 7.5 minutes with their patients. But she, for her, there's no magic crystal ball to look into to be able to diagnose her patients. So she's needed to spend that extra time with them. And unfortunately, that didn't work for the business model of the clinic that she was in. So when it comes to going to see your medical doctor, due respect for these medical doctors and what they do. It's not an easy job, especially because they want to try and get you better in a 7.5 minute appointment. Now that's for most people. Now, what I find with my clients and when I'm teaching workshops is when I ask them about their whole health team, they usually only have 1 or 2 people on their whole health team. So they might have a surgeon and their GP, or they have a gynecologist and another doctor who's their GP, or they have a pediatrician and their GP. So everything is really centered around the medical system. I'm just going to move my wobbly chair here. I have a stand-up desk, and I'm finding that I'm sitting on it too much and being reliant on it. So I'm going to be grounded on my legs talking to you. And so I'm not moving around too much. So let's go back to the stand-up desk. By the way, everybody, get yourself a stand-up desk. They are much better for your circulation. They've been shown to actually reduce chronic degenerative diseases, lifestyle diseases that are attributed to sitting too much. So get yourself a standing desk. And I'm happy to share a great company where we had our desk built. I wish I could show it to you. It's all made of wood, super inexpensive. It assembles really quickly, but a standing desk is definitely one step you can take to better your health. But remember, you can't stand your way out of bad health. You need to have that food first. Okay, so back to your whole health team. So in having a whole health team, what this means is that you understand that there are a whole host of healthcare practitioners out in the world that understand the body from a different perspective, similar to how an internal medicine doctor understands internal medicine. But a bone doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, understands bones in the skeletal system. And then you might have an endocrinologist who understands the endocrine system. So I would never, ever go to, just a general doctor and say, hey, can you prescribe some hormones for me? I would demand that I have an endocrinologist who's going to do special tests all around hormone paneling. And then if I needed to take hormone therapy drugs, which I would use food first, but I would allow the endocrinologist to prescribe that. I would never allow somebody who doesn't understand the endocrine system to ever prescribe hormone drugs to me, because a little tiny change in your hormone levels will put every other hormone out of whack. So it's really important that this is handled delicately if you're going to use pharmaceuticals, if at all. So even there within the medical system, within MDs, I've already mentioned a whole host of medical doctors. So it's important that you understand this. Here's an example. When I went to Emerge one day, because I ended up missing a flight to go work with a client, because I woke up in the morning and it felt like there was a ball in the bottom of my foot. Now, that ball in the bottom of my foot literally felt like somebody had placed a marble just beneath the skin. And I couldn't walk, and it was so painful. It was causing my hip to go out. It was causing my shoulder to hurt. And this happened about 4 a.m. when I was leaving to go catch the flight. So when I returned, I caught another flight, did the work, hobbled around on crutches that I got on the other end of my flight, and then returned. And it was about 4 or 5 days later. So I went to Emerge and I said, hey, there's something wrong. So the Emerge doctor, did an x-ray of my foot, couldn't find anything. And I was told to pretty much stay on crutches for 6 weeks. Now, I was running a busy, growing restaurant and franchise company and my health consulting company. There is no way I could be on crutches for 6 weeks. So I left the emergency room and I said, you know what? I'm going to go take care of this. So I called up the physiotherapist office. I hobbled over there and I, explained that it felt like there was a ball in the bottom of my foot. I pointed at my foot and immediately they diagnosed it as a cuboid bone slip, which means that it's just a little bone that's in your foot. You have tons of bones in your foot and the cuboid bone slipped out. So with one quick adjustment from the physiotherapist, and it was back in place, and the pain was gone, completely eliminated. And here I thought my bone was broken, that I must have like hit my foot in the middle of the night and broke a bone. So you have one doctor saying stay on crutches for 6 weeks, and another doctor that's a physiotherapist that is able to snap the bone back right in place and then tape it up so it didn't fall out again. And then I was good to go from day one, walking on it with no pain. So another example that I have is after I gave birth to my third daughter, I had excruciating pain radiating through my pelvis. And I thought for sure I had broken and separated my pelvis because the pain was so bad. It took me about 45 minutes to even just roll over in bed. And I can do it with the help of my husband. After about 3 or 4 days of this and of him picking me up, putting me in a car, taking me to the physio, taking me to the doctors to try and figure out what was wrong, I said, you know what, forget it. Just put me in the car. I need to go to Vancouver. It's an hour and a half drive away. So my 5-day-old baby and myself got into the car. My husband drove us down to Vancouver. I went and saw my chiropractor. And I've had this chiropractor for 15 or 20 years. He is incredible. And in fact, I've probably only had to see him less than a dozen times in 15 years. He's that good. So his business model is not that great because he is that good. But you can't get into him. Lots of people go to see him. So he's not hurting, definitely. So in 5 minutes, he was able to diagnose that the fact that my one side of my pelvis had tilted forward and the other side of my pelvis had tilted back. So it was just pulling on the ligaments. And it took him a whole 30 seconds to diagnose that, do one adjustment, put my pelvis back in place. And then I was able to lift my knees up to my chest. I was able to walk. I even wanted to go for a run. The pain was gone. And that was within less than a 20-minute appointment. Now, I had gone to a physiotherapist here in Whistler, and the physiotherapist didn't even want to touch me because immediately they thought that my pelvis was broken. They didn't know what to do. They had never seen anything like that. So what they recommended to me was that I wear a brace around my pelvis for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. And I thought, well, that's crazy. You're expecting me to live with pain and to just brace myself for 6 to 8 weeks, potentially making the problem worse. So where a physiotherapist had helped me before to get my cuboid bone in my foot back in place, a different physiotherapist was not able to help me with my pelvic situation. So it was a chiropractor that was able to help me. So I hope you see where I'm going with this when I say build your whole health team. So on my whole health team, what I have is I have a list and it says Nicolette's whole health team. Now this is going to be different than my husband's whole health team because, he might see a proctologist, he might see, someone who's, specializes in men's health, and I'm going to see someone who specializes in women's health. So we're going to have different people as well. He might have a relationship with one physiotherapist and I don't have that particular relationship. So he might have a relationship with somebody else that's better for him and that works for him. Somebody who specializes in running, for example. So when it comes to your whole health team, that you need to build one out for your entire family. So if you have a baby, you're going to have a pediatrician. If you have a 13-year-old, you want to have a doctor who's really great with teenagers. If you have, your senior citizen, you want to have somebody who's really, really good in gerontology and seniors' health issues. So you need to have different practitioners for different things and at different stages of your life. So when you build out your whole health team, what I do is I put my name at the top of a Word document. You can do it by hand. It doesn't matter. But you can say, Nicolette's whole health team. And then underneath, I list all of the different health professionals and practices that exist. So medical doctor, endocrinologist, surgeons, a physiotherapist, chiropractors, homeopathists, herbalists, traditional Chinese medicine doctors, acupuncturists, and those could be the same. Maybe your TCM, you love them for what they do around herbal medicine, but you like somebody else for acupuncture. No problem. You just make a list and you put it down. Then what I do is I put 2 lines beside every healthcare professional title. So I might have 2 different medical doctors. And in fact, I do, because I have one that is incredible for gynecological health. And then I have another one that is pretty fantastic for all other things. And I have one, for example, and that person will never prescribe me with drugs. She knows that, that's not what I'm there for, unless it's an acute condition. And then of course she will. But for the most part, if I go to see her, usually she asks me really great questions like, are you dehydrated? Are you getting enough sleep? Or usually, she just says, Nikki, you know what to do to get over this. And it's usually the only time I'll go to the doctor is because I'm lingering on, whether it is an acute condition that does really need to be treated, or whether it's an ongoing chronic thing. So I don't have to go to the doctors very often. It's fantastic, but still I have 2 medical doctors on there. Physiotherapist, the same thing. Chiropractor, Terry's in the city, Dr. Terry Dixon at the North Shore Wellness Center. He's phenomenal. But I also have a chiropractor in Whistler who really specializes in jaw, oral, eye, and throat and ear issues. So if I had, my clicking jaw, I would go to this chiropractor instead of driving down to the city to see Terry. Now, same thing for a physiotherapist. There's one physiotherapist who's incredible, who does acupuncture at the end of every physiotherapy session. Love it. So I have them down as one of my physiotherapists, and then I'll have another name down. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, it must be nice. You probably have extended medical. But you know what? I only just recently got extended medical. And before that, I would just pay for these services out of my own pocket. And for the most part, though, I never need to see anybody, maybe once a year or once every couple of years. And of course, it's because I use food as medicine to keep me healthy. I pay attention to what's going on in my body. I sleep when I need to sleep. I eat good food. I try and really minimize the processed foods that go into our body. Usually it's if I have some ridiculous craving like salt and vinegar chips. And usually it's because I have not eaten well for a few days. I haven't taken in enough greens. And so usually when I do that, all my cravings disappear, as they do for all of my clients who do the Gerson therapy. So as you go down your list and you have 2 different names for every healthcare practitioner, you can take that sheet, you can laminate it, you can put it in a folder, put it up in the inside cupboard of your bathroom, put it in your kitchen, have it somewhere where it's available. And the reason you want to have it available, it's so that when you get sick, okay, you'll know to look at the list, and then you can use your intuition to guide you. Is this something where my medical doctor can help me with? If you have an infection and let's say you have a cut on your arm and it's infected and you see red streaks moving up your arm, it's becoming systemic. You know what? Get to your GP or the emergency room even. But, if it's, for example, your elbow's hurting and it's clicking, or let's say, your lower back is hurting and it's not feeling good, you might choose to go see a nutritionist. Does it have to do that, does your sore back have to do with the fact that your gut is bloated and potentially you have digestive issues, which is affecting your lower back? So maybe it's a nutritionist that you need to see. To just correct some things in your diet to get rid of the bloating, and then which takes the pressure off your back? Or is it really an acute back condition where maybe a physiotherapist or a chiropractor can deal with it? An example of when I first went to see Terry, my chiropractor at the North Shore Wellness Center, is when I had been in a car accident when I was 21. And I had gone to many doctors, many physiotherapists. I had gone to see one other chiropractor, didn't have a good experience with them, and nothing was helping. Now, I had developed essentially 2 major symptoms following the car accident. I was highly constipated, and I had a ridiculous gag reflex. So if I even smelled anything that was not neutral, I would just start dry heaving and gagging no matter where I was. And this continued for a few months. And I thought, well, wow, I didn't realize that it was related to the car accident. But I started to think that it was. So when I was at a physiotherapist office, I said, hey, you know what? I've been constipated since this car accident. Do you think it has anything to do with my back and this rib being out of alignment? And the physiotherapist said, it has nothing to do with that. Go see your GP. They'll give you Metamucil for the most part. And I was like, you know what? This is not a fiber issue. I was never constipated before the car accident. It happened afterwards. Now, I immediately left that physiotherapist and said, if they can't see that my body is interrelated, that my body is not just a sum of individual parts, but it's one entire organism, it's one entire system, and it's all connected, then that's not going to be my physiotherapist. So ultimately, I fired him. Now, I'll get back to the firing and hiring your healthcare practitioners in a bit. So what I did is I ended up seeking out a chiropractor. They weren't able to help. And so then I came across Terry at the North Shore Wellness Center. And when I was there, he asked me a whole host of questions. But the most important question that he asked me, he said, Nikki, can you tell me every single symptom that you have going on right now in your entire body, even if you think it's not related to the car accident? And I thought, wow, what an incredible, refreshing question. And so, of course, I was prompted to tell him about the constipation and then about the gag reflex. And he brought me to a beautiful chart that was up on his wall that showed the entire skeletal system and all the nerves that are connected to the skeletal system, and said, if any of those areas are compressed, or if there's, muscles triggering, or if there's inflammation in those areas, then you're going to cut off the nerves, and then you're going to cut off the cell signaling from the body to the brain and back, which ultimately triggers healing. So he explained it in such an amazingly simple way. And he said, okay, look, we're going to massage this area of your neck, do a simple little adjustment, and that should take care of the gag reflex. And then we're going to adjust this part of your spine, which is connected to your lower digestive, large intestinal system and your colon. And we're going to adjust that, and that should help with constipation. And sure enough, within a 20-minute session, he adjusted those two parts. My gag reflex was gone permanently, and my constipation was over. From that moment, not from that moment on, but I definitely left there and was able to have perfect bowel movements after that. So here's an example of where, going to the medical doctor, sure, they might have prescribed Metamucil, but how would they have dealt with the gag reflex? And would the Metamucil have even worked for the constipation? Probably not. So ever since then, I've always looked at chiropractors from the standpoint of if they can get your skeletal system in alignment and make sure that the communication is happening from the brain to the body to your peripheral, ligaments and arms and systems, your hands and legs, then there's communication happening all throughout the body, as well as from the spine to the brain and to the internal organ systems as well. So don't ever discredit anything as being separate from the skeletal system, because it's all connected. Everything is one big, beautiful, amazing self-healing unit. So that's an example. I talked a lot about chiropractic care. And in fact, I know a lot of you are afraid to go to a chiropractor because you hear the stories of, so-and-so got their neck cracked and, and then it paralyzed them. And, you really need to look at the data to see how many people that's ever happened to. And what you'll actually find is that going to a medical doctor, going into an emergency room, being in a surgery situation, being diagnosed drugs, anything that involves the medical care system actually is the third leading cause of death in North America. So really, it's not the chiropractors, it's not the physiotherapists, it's not the acupuncturists or the traditional Chinese medicine doctors. You need to do the research. In fact, Vioxx killed hundreds of thousands of people and injured hundreds of thousands of people. And that's just one drug being prescribed by a medical doctor. So prescription drugs, there's no prescription drug out there that is not associated with death. And in fact, there's nothing in this world that is not associated with death. Walking down the street, taking a plane, choking on chicken McNuggets is apparently quite actually a huge phenomenon. There's more vending machines that kill people than there are, shark attacks and bear attacks and wild animal attacks all put together. Isn't that crazy? Vending machines. If they don't kill you by giving you processed food and causing chronic disease, then they're going to fall on you and kill you that way. Crazy, right? But this is where you need to know the data first. So get over your fears. Find a practitioner that you love. With my chiropractor for years, I said, don't crack my neck, because I was a little bit susceptible to the poor data. I wasn't looking at the data actually, and I was a bit nervous. But now I let him do the neck adjustments. I let him do all my spinal adjustments, and he's incredible. So these are different ways that you can use different healthcare practitioners. When my daughter had a concussion, we made sure that we actually reached out to everybody on her entire healthcare team. After a month of being home, and because it was an acute situation where I was really relying on the neuroscientist specialist and the concussion specialist to tell us what to do, and pretty much it was just a wait and see approach. In fact, my whole entire TEDx talk is about this. I, at the end, realized, you know what, I'm going to treat this like a chronic degenerative disease. I'm going to pull my whole health team together. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get my daughter what she needs. And so we accessed nutrition, physio, acupuncture, the ophthalmologist, optometrist. We did chiropractic care. We did compression therapy. We did high dose omega-3 nutritional supplements for the brain. We did magnesium salt baths. We did like so many things in one day. And in one day, after a month of being home and after the emerge doctor telling us she'd be home for probably an entire year, that we should prepare ourselves for that, we healed her in one day by going through her whole entire whole health team and saying, you know what? Every one of those healthcare practitioners is going to do the best in their field to get my daughter better. And they did. And in fact, it worked. So I'm not saying everybody's going to be able to do that. We live in a small town where all these practitioners are within, 5 minutes of each other. So it's a lot easier. I didn't have extended healthcare at the time. So it probably cost me about $600 or $700 to do that for my daughter in one day. But in doing that, I ended up saving thousands and thousands of dollars, but also more importantly, saving my daughter's health, because she was in such excruciating pain from her concussion that, and if she was going to have to stay home for a year, it probably would have resorted in some sort of pain medication, sleep medication, and potentially some antidepressants, because she was not in a good place as a 9-year-old. And I couldn't stand to watch that happen. So refer to your whole health team, use your intuition to guide you. Do you need acupuncture? If you have an injury and there's inflammation and it's not healing, acupuncture can stimulate the brain to let the body know that there's healing that needs to take place there. It increases circulation and blood flow, brings healing nutrients to that area, inflammatory system or immune system cells to that area to reduce the inflammation, to promote healing. So acupuncture might be something fantastic for you. An osteopath, put an osteopath on there. Craniosacral therapist. Sometimes it's just a little tiny, slight maneuver on the C2, on the skull, on the neck, releasing neck muscles, which can do worlds and worlds of good if you suffer from migraines and dizziness, and if you get sick often or have sinus infections. Physiotherapist, really fantastic for muscular situations, for muscle tears, ligaments, tendons, things like that. Chiropractors are great for the skeletal system. Endocrinologists, great for hormones. For the most part, nutritionist, really good for getting inflammation out of the body. If the nutritionist really understands how to use nutrition, where they're not just promoting superfoods and eat maca and goji berries and you're bound to get better. That's not the case. You really need to return to a very simple plant-based diet predominantly, and use whole, healing, clean foods to stimulate your body to heal itself. So if you can find a nutritionist like that, if you can't call us or see us, then you're going to be well and covered in the nutrition area. So a homeopath, we have used homeopathy for years in our house, which is probably why we don't have any medications. And it's not to say that our kids don't get sick. For sure they get sick, but what I've noticed is they don't get sick for as long as other kids for the most part that we've seen. Now that's just anecdotal, of course, but here's an example. When my first daughter, when she was about 2, she got croup. And of course she couldn't breathe and she had this cough that was, sorry for the background noise there. Our office neighbors are clearly happy and celebrating. So she had croup. And it was really scary to me as a new mother, and I didn't know what to do. So we took her to emergency because she couldn't breathe. And lo and behold, because it was wintertime, we took her out, and actually the cold air helped to open up her throat and get rid of it. So by the time we ended up at the doctor's, the symptoms were all gone. But he said, you know what, it probably was croup. Just give her, these medications. You're going to have to do this for her. In fact, what he suggested is we put her head in the freezer. So just expose her to cold air or put her head out of the window. So that was awesome. No meds prescribed, but said, come back to emerge if it's a problem. And so we went back home, and sure enough, being in the warm, heated room, her croup came back and she was barking like a dog. She couldn't breathe. She was crying. And so I had also picked up a homeopathic remedy for croup. And so I gave it to her, and within 2 seconds of taking it, the cough went away and she went to sleep. Now, a lot of people don't believe in homeopathy because for them, they want the hard science around it. And using the scientific method, they can't detect the concentrations that are in the homeopathy because they're so diluted. Now, my response to that is, well, if the technology doesn't exist to be able to detect those concentrations, does it mean it doesn't exist? Similar to electricity. We don't often see it, but it exists. You don't see the power running to your light bulb, but the energy exists to be able to power your car, to power your office, to power your home, to provide heat. Sound waves, you don't see them, but they exist. Yes, they can be measured. We now know how to measure, but there was a time in history when we couldn't even measure these things. We didn't know how to measure electrons, atoms, the nucleus of cells, mitochondria. And in fact, right now, the microscopes aren't even strong enough to fully understand what's going on in the mitochondria because we can't see everything. But does that mean that the technology won't exist in the future? So it's up to you if you want to wait for science to catch up, or what you could do is experiment with these different things and see if it works for you. We experimented with homeopathy. I learned about the science behind it. It made sense to me. At the same time, I was skeptical, but the one thing I could not deny is that every single time when we get that remedy right and we give it to our daughters, it heals them. They get better. Their symptoms completely go away, and faster than what most drugs would do. So if my daughters have a fever, the goal isn't to eliminate the fever. What we give them is ferrum perovskite, or sometimes belladonna, or sometimes pulsatilla. And what we find is it reduces the fever by a couple degrees. It doesn't eliminate it entirely, because that's not what we want to do. But it does reduce the fever, still keeps it there so that it can actually kill the bacteria or viruses or whatever's happening. So we've seen that, and it's measurable. You can use a thermometer, you can test it yourself and see how it works. And the one thing I love about it is that we use it on our babies. We used it for teething and we noticed immediate relief. We used it for crying when they were in pain, immediate relief. We used it for croup. We used it for bee stings. We used it for everything, and we see the relief that comes with it. And you know what? This is happening with our babies. And so maybe it's the placebo effect taking place. I don't know. In a 2-year-old, in a baby, perhaps it is. But you know what? I don't care. It works. And so at the end of the day, homeopathy is a big part of our life. So you might have a homeopathic practitioner or 2 of them on your list, on your whole health team. So don't discredit it until you try it and see how it works. There's probably 20, 30 different practitioners out there. The whole point in how you use it once you create that whole health team list is that when you have an injury, an illness, you're not feeling well, you want to improve your health, you scan through your list, use your gut, use your intuition to let you know, potentially who you need to go see. And so get to know what all of those areas of expertise are all about, whether it's skeletal, muscle, hormone, blood, your reproductive system, so you just need to know your body intimately, and then you'll know how to match yourself with the right practitioner at the right time. Now, let's go back to my comment that I said about firing your practitioners. I am always so surprised by how many people say, well, I've been seeing that doctor for 20 years, but meanwhile, they're on every single drug. They've, had organs removed. They're not better. Their symptoms are not gone, but they still go back to that same doctor. Now, if you were taking your car to a mechanic, and every time that mechanic would, replace a part, but the car still doesn't work, do something to the car, but it still never runs optimally. And then they just keep charging you and charging you and charging you, and you keep paying over that money, but the car is never fixed. The problem is still there. Would you go back to the same mechanic? Probably not. Probably you would sort out another mechanic, either through word of mouth, you look through the yellow pages, you Google, and you take your car to a different mechanic until the problem is resolved. And why? Because your health and your life is a factor and is at risk. So, if you had a wobbly wheel on that car, you're not going to want to drive around on that car that has a wobbly wheel until the car is fixed. Why? Because you are advocating for your health and the health of others as well. So the same thing applies to your medical practitioners, whole health team. If you're seeing somebody and you're not getting results, maybe after the 3rd or 4th time you see them, or maybe it's after the 1st time you've seen them, I don't know, whatever your 80-20 rule, 70-32 rule is. And what I mean by that is I have an 80-20 rule. I put up with 80% of things. Things need to be positive, and I'll allow myself to put up with 20% of BS. Okay? So and I have different rules for different things. So when it comes to my work environment, I need to love my work 80% of the time, 20% of the time I can hate it. Okay. So that's an example of a 80-20 rule. If it drops below that, then that's when I need to think of another career or another job. Same thing with my relationships with people, same things with, the food that I eat, everything. So you can apply this rule to your whole health team as well. If you go see them X number of times and you're not getting results, you need to either fire them, or maybe they're just not the right practitioner to see, and you're going to choose somebody else from your whole health team. And you're going to do this until you get results. This is called advocating for yourself and your health, just like you would advocate for that car that you love, or anything else in your life that you're trying to fix. So treat yourself with the same respect that you would give your car, your relationship, your place of employment, all of those things. And you need to fire your doctors and healthcare practitioners, and if they're not working for you. And the reason is because you pay them. So technically, you're their boss. And if you don't realize that you're paying for them, you just need to look at the taxation system. Your tax dollars in Canada, especially, go towards supplying the healthcare system. It also, if you're paying for extended medical benefits, you're paying for those services that you're getting. So ultimately, you are paying for these practitioners to work for you. You are their boss. And if they're not delivering results, or if it's not working on your body, move them aside and go to the next person. And so the same thing goes for hiring. Now, I don't know how many of you just hire people blindly, like walk into an office and be like, hey, come work for me. Well, when we do hiring at the Green Mustache or for Richer Health, we go through an extensive interview process, just like most jobs and most businesses do. Now, the same thing can happen for you and your healthcare team. So when I needed a pediatrician for my first daughter, I did that. I interviewed 12 different doctors, and it was amazing because I went in with research around vaccinations, around other things that had to do with infants and infant health. And it was amazing how 11 out of those 12 doctors pretty much said, I'm not looking at that research. I'm a doctor. I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. And in fact, one doctor said, if you don't vaccinate your daughter, you're not going to be my patient. And I thought, wow, that's not the kind of employee I would hire, somebody who's not willing to have a conversation, and somebody who's going to put themselves on a pedestal just because they went to medical school. So I immediately walked out of there and I said, I cried, but I also walked out of there and I said, there's no way I want that person advocating for my child's health. It doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter if you're not willing to have a conversation about data and science, then at the end of the day, I'm not going to hire you. Why? Because we know so much data is biased. And it wasn't to say that I was going to vaccinate or wasn't going to vaccinate, but it was just that I wanted to have a conversation. So I didn't hire those 11 doctors, where I think for a lot of us, we probably would have gone to the first pediatrician that we could get into and then accepted them as our pediatrician for life. So on the 12th doctor, I walked in there and he was incredible. He would openly discuss and vaccinations with me. He gave me his opinions. He pointed me to more data, resources, books. He gave me plans that we can come up with for my child. And then when I said to him, I said, well, when do I need to bring my daughter back? He looked at me and he said, you'll know when to bring your daughter back. Don't worry, trust your instinct. And for me, that is the kind of doctor I wanted. Somebody I can have an open relationship with, somebody who would take the time to listen, and somebody who would treat my daughter accordingly when she absolutely needed it. And somebody who would also listen to me as a mother, because at the end of the day, mothers know their babies better than anybody else. And we'll cover that in a whole nother topic. My oldest daughter is my medical muse. She's been in about 4 different acute health situations where the doctors didn't trust me as their mother. They felt they knew best. They ended up misdiagnosing her. It almost cost her life. So I'll tell that story. And it's really in an effort to help you advocate for your children or those who can't speak for themselves. So we'll leave that for another topic. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about building your whole health team. Shoot us some questions to info@richerhealth.ca if you're curious about something, want to learn more about something. We'll include these links and resources. Please visit our Richer Health website, sign up for the Train the Trainer program so you can learn how to teach others the same things and the same subjects and topics and how to eat to beat disease. You can learn how I do what I do and how I have accumulated about 10 to 15 years of information and research that has helped hundreds of people eat to beat their disease. And you'll be able to learn this as well and help others. Richer Health is building their team. We need you to be trained so we can hire you and support you in building your health and wellness coaching program, education program, and consulting program. So please sign up for that course. Check out our retreat center site. Get your butt into a Green Mustache Cafe and get a delicious warm beverage or our healing kitchery meal. It's fantastic for these cold winter days. And thank you for being with us. Stay tuned for next week when we talk to you about food as medicine and how to support your system to be optimal so you can experience optimal, vibrant health. Thank you.